Did my 2-year-old remember how he died in a former life?
Welcome to Eerie, Enigma, where the night attracts spooky clips from TikTok, where the mystery acts, chilling tales of haunting, shadows dance inside. Join us as we explore the paranormal fright. In the stillness of the night, whispers call your name.
Subscribe, like, and share.
Tonight, we're stepping into the shadows of St. Louis, a city rich in history and something far darker.
Did my 2-year-old remember how he died in a former life? Months later, I finally have an update. He said something back in April that kind of creeped me out, and I haven't shared it yet because I just kind of wanted to sit with it first. We were with a group of friends taking a tour of Cardinals baseball stadium in downtown St. Louis, and we were walking over to Ballpark Village, which is right next to the stadium, and we were going to have a lunch. But while we were walking into the building, we looked around and my son was nowhere to be found. And so we looked behind us and he's just standing outside of Ballpark Village, just looking at this empty space. So our friend walks up to him and is like, "Hey buddy, we're gonna go inside, come with us." And he didn't say a word, he just kept staring at the space. As he's staring into the space, he says, "It's just so sad." And my friend goes, "What's sad, buddy?" A lot of people got hurt when the tornado came through and all the houses were just gone in the library and just a lot of people were hurt and it's very sad. So we go inside the restaurant and my other friend is like, "Well, let's Google it." And I'm like, "Okay." And guess what went right through that area? The 1896 St. Louis cyclone, the most deadly tornado in St. Louis history that none of us had ever heard about before. And the tornado's path, it didn't get all of St. Louis. No, it went on this path right here, right across the stadium area. Right there is the stadium. How? I don't understand. Like maybe he wasn't remembering his past life, but someone else's? I don't understand. Do kids just know things? It's impossible that he could have known that. Impossible.
Y'all want to hear a Missouri story? This story is going to take us back to St. Louis and the very requested and very haunted Lemp Mansion. The Lemp Mansion is now a restaurant and inn and was the historic home of beer barons, the Lemp family. Our story begins with John Adam Lemp, who moved from Germany to St. Louis in 1838. In 1840, he built a brewery that became an outstanding success, and John Adam died a millionaire. After his death, his son William J. Lemp took over the family business and turned it into an industrial giant. And by 1870, it was the largest brewery in St. Louis. The Lemp family built themselves an empire, and the fall of this empire is marked by tragedy. A son of William named Frederick died in 1901 at the age of 28, and it broke William's heart. And 3 years later, in 1904, he shot himself in one of the bedrooms at the mansion. From that point on, tragedy followed the family relentlessly. Prohibition closed the brewery permanently in 1919. And then in 1920, William's sister Elsa, considered the wealthiest heiress in all of St. Louis, committed suicide due to a rocky marriage. And in 1922, the Lemp Brewery was sold at auction and all the company's assets had to be liquidated. They kept their mansion though. And then also in 1922, William Lemp Jr. also shot himself in the home, in his office at the time, which is now the dining room. But before his death, William Jr. was well known as a womanizer. Even though he was married to his beautiful trophy wife, Lillian, he still sired another son by another woman. Some say a prostitute, some say one of the maids. No official documentation of this boy exists, but it said that he was hidden and housed inside the attic of the mansion, which was confirmed by former servants of the family. The boy was kept in the attic for the entirety of his life, both to hide William's shame and because the boy was born with Down syndrome, which also earned him the cruel nickname, the monkey-faced boy. And he is said to still haunt the mansion to this day. And I mean, I would too. The boy, who some say his name was Zeke, is buried in the Lemp family plot, but with only a small flat marker marked with the word Lemp. After William Jr.'s death, his brother Charles lived in the home. He was described as a bitter, reclusive man. In 1949, after shooting his beloved Doberman Pinscher, he went upstairs to the second floor and also shot himself. Of all the Lemps, only Edwin Lemp lived to a ripe old age of 90. He died in 1970, and according to his last wishes, his butler burned all of his paintings, artifacts, and the family documents. After the family was gone, the mansion was turned into a boarding house. But it said it was so haunted that they struggled to find and keep tenants. And in 1975, it was turned into the restaurant. And the workers doing renovations were known to leave the job site and never come back. Due to the hauntings, their tools would disappear, ladders would be knocked over, and they were done with it. Now employees still report strange events. Glasses fly off the bar, doors open and close by themselves. Sometimes the piano plays when no one is near. It's 3 areas of the mansion that seem the most haunted, and that is the attic, the stairway, and the basement that used to hold the tunnels that led from the home to the brewery, referred to as the gate to hell by employees. A lovely Missouri woman named Kayla told me, when you sit down to eat, sometimes it'll feel like people have their hands on their shoulders, and you might need to go outside just to get some relief. Have you all been to the Lemp Mansion?
Here's the first time it passes by.
This is one of the most haunted places I've ever been to, and I wouldn't spend the night here alone. This is the Elsa Lemp Suite in the infamous Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, many people believe that this is one of the most haunted buildings in all of America, and that this room inside of the mansion is its most haunted. Do you see anything strange in this footage? Why don't you let me know below in the comments if you do. To give you a little history, the Lemp Mansion was built by the Lemp family, and 3 generations of the Lemp family all died from self-inflicted wounds here in the building. There are a number of spirits that have been seen here, but specifically in this area, the ghost of a little boy named Zeke. Now, Zeke was supposedly the son of one of the male members of the Lemp family, and he was born with some sort of disfigurement, so they kept him locked up here in this area. People come and leave toys for Zeke, and allegedly he plays with them. When I was here, I left Zeke a little race car. What do you think? Would you spend the night in this room alone?
So recently I shared some historic photos of St. Louis, and I made a comment saying that St. Louis is a historic and a haunted city. Most older cities like St. Louis, New Orleans, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, most cities such as those, they are going to be haunted because they have a history. And all the cities that I mentioned have older housing style. So I live here right across the street from St. Louis University, and I'm going to take y'all on a look tour of my complex and the neighborhood. So this is the main building. This building was built back in 1924. It used to be a hotel. It became apartments back in, I think like the early 2000s. But I think between the 80s and the 2000s, it was vacant. This right here is the original vent. The chandeliers, everything is original. This is the lobby for the theater that they have whenever they have shows. Everything is original. Their staircase is original. And they still have the mail chute right here. See? And this right here is the West building. This is where they used to park their cars back in the day. And the sign from the Twins is still there. And I don't know what this used to be, but they turned these into apartments. I wouldn't stay there because, child, it looked haunted. And last but not least, we are coming up on the church where the Exorcist happened. Yes. And yes, this inspired the movie The Exorcist. I believe in the back of the church, the anonymous boy, because we don't know his name, he was took in the back of the church by the 2 priests, and they performed the exorcism on him. And I also recently shared a photo of the home of the family that was impacted by this, which is located in Belnora, Missouri in St. Louis County. And I'm not going to lie to y'all, I have witnessed some things within my apartment. I'm not going to share because y'all would think I'm crazy. But anywho, yeah, St. Louis is pretty haunted.
What's the scariest urban legend from your state? Today we're doing Missouri. Once again, we're talking about a haunted road, and this one is very creepy. Zombie Road was constructed in the late 1860s. It was originally built to gain access to the Merrimack River and the railroad tracks that were running right beside it. This 2-mile stretch of road had an eerie feel about it from the very beginning, probably because of how dangerous it was to drive along this road. You couldn't see what was ahead of you, and it would often cast really weird shadows. Eventually, this stretch of road would fall into disrepair, and in the 1950s, it became a lover's lane of sorts, where young couples would go to find alone time. They would also throw parties along this road and the likes. But many urban legends have plagued this road from the very beginning. One of the scariest was of a creepy guy who lived along this road in a shack, and he would frequently hurt young teenagers who came to use this area to be alone. People also talk about frequently seeing a woman in white or a woman who is walking along the road who gives off a bluish white light. Many people think that this is the wife of a local judge who passed away in 1876 due to an accident on the railroad track. Some people have even reported hearing a woman screaming at them from some of the abandoned shacks that are around the area, but when they go to investigate who was screaming at them, there is never anybody there. There is also a legend of a small boy who drowned in the river, and people often report hearing him and seeing him, but again, he's just never there. There have been several reports of paranormal activity, but many people just write this off as it's just a creepy trail in the first place. Like, it gives a really weird vibe, and when you feel like you're being watched, you're probably not. It's just your mind playing tricks on you. But others think that this is a hotspot for paranormal activity because of the deaths that have happened there, not just from the judge's wife or the young boy who lost his life or this alleged serial killer that's running around, but there were also many train derailments around this area as well. As it sits today, it's a bike trail. It's called Rock Hollow Trail, and so you can still ride on this road. So would you do it? Are you brave enough? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and follow for more creepy things.
Okay, y'all, so we are doing haunted tours of St. Louis here tonight, and we are on our way now to Roosevelt High School. Now, a lot of people went to Roosevelt that lived in South St. Louis. It was the South St. Louis High School, right?
Besides Southwest.
Yes, and it has a horrible haunted history.
Go Rough Riders.
The Roosevelt Rough Riders. Is that like they sound like a bucking horse or something?
They sound like Roosevelt. He rode on horses, you know, he was a general or whatever. He was
because they think is a bucking cow.
A bucking horse.
Bronco. Yeah, it's a horse with a man
it's
on
got
it.
Roosevelt on it.
No, that ain't Roosevelt. It's a man with a cowboy hat on.
Little glasses and little spectacle thing.
No.
I thought it was. Oh.
It's not.
Also, it'd be like a Bronco thing.
But I think his people were called the Rough Riders.
Right. And I think I thought, you know.
But yeah, no, it's a cowboy being bucked off a horse.
So they maybe got it after him.
Yeah, but then they just changed it.
They didn't want to put a president, so they just put a
That could be what it is. Yeah, but we are on Gravois, and the school is located off of Gravois and what street? Compton in South St. Louis. Okay, so some of the history of this school is just amazing. Okay, so Roosevelt was actually built on the land that once held the old Picker Cemetery. Okay, and this cemetery was opened in 1845 by German Protestants in what was once rural St. Louis. So this was like the county. What we think when we think about county area now, this was once county area. Okay. So the neighborhood grew so fast that at one point all of the homes surrounded this one plot of land, and that plot of land just happened to be the cemetery. So they wanted to build a school for the children, and they decided, hey, let's move the bodies and we're gonna build Roosevelt in this spot. So the Protestant cemetery owners paid grave diggers to build up dig up graves at $1 per grave. And they don't think that most of the graves were actually dug up. They think that just mostly the headstones were removed and lots of the bodies were left there. Okay. So another thing that you got to know about this cemetery was that during a time in St. Louis in the early 1800s, there was a cholera outbreak. And this outbreak was so bad that it left lots and lots of children orphaned. 1 in every 11 St. Louisans died from cholera. And you would just feel ill one day, and then you would just have diarrhea, and it would be something that they call rice water diarrhea. And it would leave when you would have the diarrhea, it would come out, and in the diarrhea would be all of these little white specks, and that would be parts of your intestines that came out. That's how horrible cholera was. And cholera came over with the immigrants from Germany and the Jewish immigrants because they would be on those ships for so long that they would be drinking bad water. And that's how you get cholera. You drink, you end up ingesting it. So this left a lot of orphan kids, and most of those bodies that were left were buried in this cemetery. So there are a lot of people that were buried here that didn't know what was coming, if you know what I'm saying. They just died. 24 hours. And so there have been reports from athletes, because it's the big part of the cemetery was where the football field now sits, and we are coming up on Roosevelt right now. But football players have reported falling over casket handles. There have been bones that wash up when it's heavy rains that wash up on the field. And there was even reports of a person walking across the field, and they just disappear into the night. Okay. And then another thing that happened here in 1977, there were 3 firemen that were off duty, and they were waxing the floor of the cafeteria here at Roosevelt. And something sparked the machine, and a fire broke out, and all 3 of those firemen died in that fire. And so we are pulling up on Roosevelt now. And then we're going to get out, I'm going to show you the school, and I'm going to tell you about some of the hauntings that they see inside of the school. And here's Roosevelt right there. It even looks scary. I just saw birds flying on, okay. I think those are chimney sweeps that I see.
Chimney swifts.
But you see the school, this is Roosevelt High.
Oh, they down doing it.
Haunted high school. Oh. Okay, so as you can see, we are overlooking the football field here now, and this is where they say that the players fall over casket handles and bones wash up, and
you can see all the sinkholes.
Yeah,
so it was great.
I'm sure some stuff do come up. And then they said that during the construction of the school, that the neighborhood kids, you know how you would play on construction sites when you were a child? The kids were playing on the construction sites, and they were digging up jewelry and bones. So, you know, that there were still bodies here. They didn't remove all the bodies. And then they also said that during construction, when they were digging, there was a incident where one of the construction workers dug up an actual casket, and he broke the part of the casket where you could see the face, and he saw that face, and they said he took off running and never came back.
I would.
You what?
I would have did the same thing.
Hell yeah. Okay. Yeah, them are chimney swifts, so you can see them flying all around. And then let me tell you about some of the ghosts that are seen in the school. Okay, so they have the ghost of a young girl, and that's what they call her. They call her Too Young. That's her name. And the reason why they call her Too Young is because it's the ghost of a young girl, and she walks around in the hallways, and she wears a flower dress, an old flower dress with the flower pattern. And they say the little girl is too young to have attended this high school. So they know that she didn't go here. I don't know. I mean, it was graves. I mean, and then you had all, like I said, it was all the orphans. They built an orphanage for the kids that were here. And that orphanage...
It was here?
The orphanage was in downtown.
Oh, okay.
And then they ended up moving that to St. Charles Rock Road. And it still sits there today. But it's named something else. After the cholera breakout. The orphans, it was a lot of orphans. So
that's a lot of...
Because that's a lot. Without parents. They were, there was a whole generation of people that was messed up because of that. And then also, the last one that I read about was the fleeing child is what they call her. And I don't know why all of these people are girls. But the fleeing child is usually seen by the janitors as they're like doing the boiler room checks, and they'll see a little girl down by the boiler room, and they'll, you go to be like, come on, what are you doing down here? And then she runs away. And when they go, it's just nothing there, So, yeah, this is Roosevelt High. A lot of people have graduated from here, but I don't know if you knew about the haunted history. If you didn't know, now you know. All right, St. Louis history, Roosevelt High School.
What would you do if you found out that the house you were living in right now was the site of 17 murders? That's exactly what happened to Katrina McGraw in St. Louis, Missouri, when she thought she had found the perfect home to rent. Everything went well with the move-in, and then one of Katrina's friends sent her a link to a Cold Case Files documentary. That documentary was about St. Louis, Missouri serial unaliver Travis Morey. Travis was a 36-year-old hotel waiter and apparently pretty proud of what he'd done. See, from May to October of 2001, 4 women were tortured and strangled. They were Teresa Wilson, Verona Thompson, Yvonne Cruz, and Brenda Beasley. The newspaper, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, decided to run a profile on Wilson, and Travis saw it and wrote an anonymous letter with a computer-generated map. In that letter, he said, "I'll tell you where many others are. And then, to prove I'm real, here's directions to number 17. Of course, the police looked into this, and they were able to determine that the map was made on Expedia.com, and somehow they were able to trace it back to him. They brought him in for questioning, and when they searched his house, they found that he was using the basement as a torture chamber. Even worse, they found a video in the house of him harming multiple women. Looking at the clips of the basement from the documentary, that's when everything clicked for Katrina.
It was all the same still. The wood paneling, the walls, the floor, that beam in the center was where Travis used to handcuff women. Of course, once Katrina realized this, she was totally freaked out, and she called her landlord and was just like, "Why didn't you tell me anything happened here? I don't want to live here anymore." And that's when she discovered that the homeowner was Sandra Travis, Maury Travis's mother. And even worse, she had absolutely no intention of breaking the lease. Katrina ended up talking to the St. Louis Housing Authority, and there she learned that Missouri, there is no duty to disclose, which means your landlord or anyone selling a house doesn't have to tell you about anything that happened there. Even though Sandra was technically in the right, the Housing Authority was able to convince her to rescind the lease, and she was allowed to move out in July of 2004. Maury Travis actually never saw the inside of a courtroom because he ended himself. And as for the Travis house, it appears that it was sold in 2014, sold again in 2019. In 2021, they were trying to rent it out for $1,000 a month, and then that listing was removed in February. Not sure if anybody's living there now.
So I'm on this work trip and we get into St. Louis and we go to our hotel rooms and we go to sleep for the night, right? Like that's the plan. That's what we've done so far. And then the next day we're waking up and we're going to go shoot this documentary scene in a gym called House of Pain. And then after that, we're going to go to the guy's house and we're going to interview him. That's the setup. But the craziest thing happened. We go to breakfast the next morning and James, one of our producers, he isn't looking so good. We're like, "Hey, how'd everybody sleep tonight?" Because, you know, when we do these trips, we always check in with each other in the morning, like, did the jet lag get to you? Are you doing okay? Like, where are we at? So that when you get on set for the shoot, you can kind of take care of each other, you know? Because we're like a family. So James goes, "I'm really hesitant to say anything, and I was like, "Your room's haunted?" And he was like, "Yes." And I was like, "Tell me all about it." I mean, who are you talking to here? The ghost guy. So he spills the beans. He goes, "All right." So I got into my room and I'm laying down for the night and I can't fall asleep. I keep feeling like there's somebody watching me. These weird things happen. I'm like, well, what kind of weird? Maybe I'll be able to help, but probably not. And, you know, and maybe it's just tiredness. And he's like, "You know, the TV had this like little night light underneath. You could have it on or you could have it off." And I had it on. And I was laying there and I was looking at my thing. I forget what it was, but he had this little thing underneath of the TV. And he was like, "I saw it move." And then I was like, "Did I just see that move?" And then right as he's looking at it, you know, it goes like that. And then like that. That's crazy, right? So then he goes, "That's not the only thing that happened." He's laying there and he said out loud, "I know you're there." And in his mind's eye, he's like, "I knew it was a woman. I immediately knew it was a woman." And he's like, "Miss, I know you're there. I'm not scared of you." And I was like, "James, wrong approach. You gotta set boundaries. You can't be like, you know, it's like when, you know, someone stands up to you and they're like, "You want to fight?" And you're like, "Yeah, I'll fight all day long." And then you get punched in the face. And he's like, "Yeah, well, I know I made a mistake because just after that, I felt her run her finger up my ankle." Wow! So I'm like, "So what did you do?" And he was like, "Oh, I was pissed and I couldn't sleep. I got like 4, maybe 3, maybe 4 hours of sleep." And I was like, "That sucks." Okay. You know what Hannah Series says on TikTok? Those are just people. You gotta set firm boundaries. To which he laughed, but then we talked about it a little bit more and I was like, "You know what? When you go into your room tonight, and we're done with our shoot, it's gonna feel silly, but you go in there and you say out loud, 'I know you're there. I know this is your room, but I paid money to stay here and I am going to get sleep tonight. You are not welcome to touch me. You are not welcome to talk to me. And you are not welcome to move things in my room. And I will be gone tomorrow.'" And he did that and he slept like a baby. Now, whether any of that's actually paranormal or if it's psychological, and James, for as long as I've known him, as a producer at our company, has never brought up anything supernatural. And I know he felt weird about it. So I don't think this was just a coincidence. You know, I kind of think that place was haunted. It was also like kind of a shitty hotel. Has something like this ever happened to you? I'm dying to know. Put it in the comments, make a stitch, whatever, you know, let me know because I just think this is so much fun.
We're walking the infamous Zombie Road in Wildwood, Missouri, a narrow, winding trail buried deep within the woods along the Merrimack River. By day, it's called the Rock Hollow Trail, but once the sun dips below the trees, this place transforms. From peaceful forest to one of Missouri's most haunted stretches of land. Locals have whispered stories about Zombie Road for generations. Some say this area was once home to Native American burial grounds, disturbed long ago during early settlement. Others talk of strange disappearances, violent acts, and shadowy figures that still wander through the mist at night. It's a mix of history and folklore, but even knowing that, the atmosphere here is heavy. It feels like the woods remember. Way back in the early 1900s, this trail connected to a small community near the railroad, and just off the main path was said to be a cemetery strictly for children. Very little remains of it now, but locals claim that on still nights, you can hear faint laughter or see small flickers of light dancing where the graves once lay. And then there's one of the most chilling legends, the story of a man who escaped from a nearby mental hospital in the 1950s. According to reports, he fled into these woods, evading search teams for days. Locals began calling him Zombie because of how he was described, pale, gaunt, and silent. One night, his trail of footprints led down this very path and stopped abruptly. No one ever found him. No remains, no clothing, nothing. Just gone. Ever since, hikers have claimed to see a shadowy figure that matches his description, watching from the trees, only to vanish when approached. As we walk further, we're careful to stay on the trail, and in the daylight. After dark, this area is off limits, closely patrolled by local police and park rangers. It's genuinely dangerous to be here at night. A chill sweeps through the air, then vanishes. Near the end of the path, we come across a strange drainage tunnel. As we lean closer, something moves inside. A faint shadow shifting, followed by a soft echo that sounds almost like a whisper. We step back, quicken our pace, and follow the trail out to the fading daylight, leaving Zombie Road behind, and whatever is still waiting down there, in the dark.
Hey, Whitey, if you can hear me.
Now, I ain't want to bring this up, but I guess this is perfect timing for this shit. Now, before we moved in here, this townhouse was vacant for like 4 years. And when we asked, what was the reason, they was like, oh, no particular reason, you know what I'm saying? So that was strike one. But, we needed somewhere to go. So we moved in. A year after we moved in, I got cool with this girl next door. Now, she was an addict. And she had 2 young kids. I think they was 2 and 3, I believe. And on days when she would be like zoned out, me and my wife, we would go and check on her kids, feed her kids, and whatnot. One time she was outside with her car running and the lights on, sleep behind the wheel, with a 2-year-old just running around, just doing whatever. So me and my wife decided to wake her up and tell her, hey, look, what's going on? You cool? And my wife was like, well, get out the car and go in the house with your kids and whatever. And she did. So a week after that, I had started barbecuing. And like I said, we always feed our kids. We always feed them whenever they're hungry. So one day I was barbecuing in the backyard. And I seen her. I was like, hey, look, if you want to play, you're more than welcome. So by the time I turned around, she was in my back door. Like going through my back door, my back door patio. And she picked up a loaf of bread. And she's finna make herself a hot dog. I immediately stopped her because I knew that she wasn't in the right place. So I immediately stopped her. I said, hey, look, I'll make it for you. Just go back home and I'll bring it to you. So when I brought the food to her, so later on that night, we ain't heard nothing. Everything was cool. We ain't heard nothing. Within 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, we heard a loud boom, 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 boom. And then we heard the kids crying. So we jumps up and we immediately go and put our ear to the wall and whatever. And we thought like maybe she was over there tussling with somebody or whatever. And then we was like, hold on, the kids just crying too much. So we went outside, knocked on the door. Then nobody answered. One of my neighbors came outside. She was like, girl, I think she fell down the steps. And as she was saying that, she was dialing 911. And so when the ambulance came, they pronounced her deceased with her 2 babies in the house. So I never wanted to talk about this, but yeah, she, with her babies in the house, yeah. So the ambulance came, that took a very long time for them to figure out what's going on or whatever. And then the next day, when we woke up, her peoples came. I want to say her brother. I don't know who he was, but he came and got the kids. And one of the parents was like that he was so glad that it was over. And he was talking about her being on drugs. He was like, he was so done. I mean, he was just so glad that it was just over and done. But the way he said it, like, I was like, wow, like, how can you say that? But at the same time, I guess, like, he felt relieved that she, didn't have to go through this no more. So he took the kids and they left, and we never saw them no more. Now, we having entities and shit all through our motherfucking townhouse. I mean, every night we hearing something. Our dog seeing something. So, I don't believe in sage, but we do believe in the Lord. We all have been baptized in the name of Jesus up in this house. So, don't nothing for us. But I'm telling you, it's an entity in this house. And by you saying that because you've been living over here, yes. We've been living over here for almost 6 years and witnessed like 5 deaths already. So I know it's spirits walking among these townhouses. I know.
Have you guys heard of the Screaming House? This house here is known as the Screaming House, and it's located in a small town called Unionville near St. Louis. In 2001, Stephen LaChance had just moved into this house. He had unexpectedly gotten separated from his wife after she decided to up and leave the family. But she didn't just leave him behind, she also left their 3 children with him. So Stephen was definitely in a very sticky situation. He had to find another place to live and a higher paying job. And the entire thing ended up taking him to Unionville, Missouri. That's when he came across an ad for this particular house. And almost instantly, he absolutely fell in love with it. It was a very classic house. Even though it was a little small, he said it was quite perfect. And even when he went to go see the house for the first time, he remembers that it smelled like freshly baked cookies, which made him fall in love with it even more. About a week later, he got a phone call from the landlady telling him that he had won the bid to rent the house. So, very excited, him and his young family moved into the house, looking forward to their new future together. But almost right away, there were signs that something was horribly wrong with the house. On moving day, as they were moving boxes into the home, him and his daughter were outside. Suddenly, a neighbor was driving by and slowed down in front of their house. He then spoke out of the window and said, "I hope you get on in there okay," and then ended up driving off. Not really knowing what to make of this, Stephen and his daughter kind of just looked at each other and shrugged it off and chalked it up to just friendly neighbors. Little did they know that their worst nightmare was about to begin. Inside the home, during move-in, Stephen was hanging up a particular painting on the wall that was of 2 angels. And no matter how many times he tried to put it on the wall, it just kept falling over and over again. Until finally the last straw came and Stephen yelled at the photo to just stay there. When he turned around, he said that he felt a breeze right below his ankles, and he was very confused about this. All of the windows and the door were closed, so there was no explanation for a sudden breeze. He turns around and there's a painting right next to his feet on the floor. Essentially, something or someone had taken the painting off of the wall and put it on the floor without making a single sound. And from there, things just got worse in the house. There were shadows, there were things moving around, they felt extremely uncomfortable in the home. And there was even a very dark demonic entity that chased up one of Stephen's kids up the stairs from the basement. And yes, there were definitely screams coming from the house. I just did a full YouTube video on this story. The link is in my bio if you guys want to know what happens.
Let's dissect one of the most widely known spooky stories of all time that actually occurred right here in the city and visit some spots where it occurred. This, of course, is The Exorcist, the successful novel and movie of the same name. It won many awards as well as being the first horror movie to be nominated for Best Picture. After adjusting for inflation, it is the highest grossing horror film of all time, coming in at over $3 billion. And second place to it wasn't even close. The Exorcist story was inspired from actual events that occurred in St. Louis in 1949. And up until a few years ago in 2021, we never got all of the details from the case, including the identity of the allegedly possessed boy, and details on what incredibly important career he had as an adult. Let me set the scene. It's 1949 in Maryland, and a boy, anonymously called Roland Doe, or Robbie Doe, grew up as an only child in a Lutheran family. His aunt, who was deep into spiritualism, was really his only playmate as a kid, and she introduced him to a Ouija board. After the aunt died, he allegedly became possessed by a demon after playing with the Ouija board while he was trying to contact her from the dead. His family claimed to see flying and levitating objects, hear unusual noises, religious crosses would shake on the wall, and furniture would move all on its own while the boy was around. They asked their Lutheran pastor to help, and he kept the boy overnight at his house for observation. Not sure if that would fly nowadays, but surprisingly, the pastor claimed to see the same things. And then he advised the boy's parents to see a Catholic priest, which I think is just the funniest thing. Like, oh hell nah, us Lutherans don't want to mess with this, give it to the Catholics. So then the Catholic priest stepped in, and although there is no corroborating evidence for this part, the story goes that the first few exorcisms were performed on the boy at Georgetown University Hospital in Washington, D.C. But they discontinued the exorcisms after the boy slipped his restraints and used a bed spring as a weapon to stab the priest. But all the witnesses did agree that they saw unexplainable scratches all over the boy's body from time to time. Often these scratches would spell out words, and soon they saw the words Lewis that appeared on his ribcage. The mother, being from St. Louis and wanting a change of scenery from all this demonic possession and all, she thought maybe the family should travel to St. Louis and stay with a relative in a home in the Belle-Nore neighborhood. But when should they leave, she posed the question. Well, soon after the words Saturday appeared on the boy's hip. Well, how long should we stay there, she wondered. Well, soon the words 3.5 weeks appeared on his chest. Alright, demon, you win, let's go to St. Louis. It's just so hilariously specific. I was hoping the sequence would continue like, oh, what should we eat while we're there? And then the words toasted ravioli appear on his forehead. Anyway, in St. Louis, they pulled together the Exorcist Dream Team, which consisted of Father William Bowden, who graduated from SLU and also taught at SLU and SLU High. He is buried here in Calvary Cemetery in North City. They also had Father Walter Holleran, who also went to SLU and taught at SLU High. These priests and other witnesses also saw the demonic signs, like the boy speaking in a strange voice, and showing aversion to Christian imagery, and the strange phenomenon of flying and shaking objects, and more body scratches that spell words like hell and evil. It even got violent at one point as the boy broke Father Halloran's nose. In total, they got permission from the Archbishop to perform nearly 30 exorcisms on the boy, and they all took place in St. Louis. First at the relative's Belle-Nore home, then here at St. Francis Xavier's Church on SLU's campus, then at the Jesuits' White House Retreat Center, and the recently closed Alexian Brothers Hospital, which is also known as St. Alexius Hospital or South City Hospital. Here at the Alexian Brothers Hospital, the story did come to an end. On Easter Monday in 1949, after his last exorcism ritual, the boy said he saw a vision of St. Michael with a flaming sword battle the devil and his demons to set him free. But here's something crazy. His family went back to Maryland, and the boy, only known by the alias of Ronald Doe, became a very successful engineer for NASA for 40 years. He worked on the Apollo missions, putting the first man on the moon, and he designed and patented a special technology for space shuttles to resist excessive heat, which is super important on re-entry to the atmosphere. He passed away in 2020, but his real identity wasn't released to the public until 2021. His real name was Ronald Hunkeler. According to someone close to him, he spent his whole life at NASA worried that his colleagues would find out the book and movie The Exorcist was based off of him. The same person also said that he admitted later in life that he wasn't actually possessed. He claimed he was just a bad boy who threw tantrums, and was a trickster who concocted the whole thing. The story of The Exorcist is a fascinating study from many angles. The author Mark Upsasnik said, to psychiatrists, Rob Doe suffered from mental illness. To priests, this was a case of demonic possession. To writers and film video producers, this was a great story to exploit for profit. Those involved saw what they were trained to see. Each purported to look at the facts, but just the opposite was true. In actuality, they manipulated the facts and emphasized the information that fit in their own agendas. And in my case, it's another story to add to the history of St. Louis.
Little backstory, I used to live in St. Louis. St. Louis used to be the whole thing used to be an Indian burial ground. Like, the whole thing just messed up. And, like, a lot of stuff there. So, the first day they moved in, while they were unpacking, they heard a shot in the closet. Now, mind you, my dad was, like, not a baby. He was, like, a toddler. And he said, so I'm just, like, piling some things together. He said, the man in the closet likes me. Hello? No. Like, I would be packing up and leaving, because what do you mean the man in the closet likes you when when we just moved in, we heard a shot. What? My mama would always see a bride, like a lady in white walking around, which, mind you, they had a dog. His name was Leo, and he was known in the neighborhood for being aggressive. My mama thinks that the house led him to be aggressive because he was always on guard. Like, he would just, like, growl at nothing and, like, show teeth and, like, stuff like that. My dad and my uncle Jimmy were painting, and they had an iPod and a radio, and a DeWalt radio, and it literally flew out of the radio. The radio would randomly turn on and change stations. Now, after they moved out, like a few months ago before I moved here, I did a bunch of research on this house. I went on Zillow to look at it. Literally, people are move in and move right out. It's like back and forth. It's literally like they move in, they're there for a few months, and then they leave. And that it's literally just been like back and forth. And and it's like the price just keeps dropping. Like, I'm pretty sure this house is like not like, it's like super cheap because people just keep moving in, moving out, moving in, moving out. So that clown story I told, these are some stories about that house. So us kids were asleep in our room, and my mama was like, let me go check on my grandkids. And lo and behold, she got pushed. We also lived in another house that was super haunted, that whatever was in that house was super evil and tried to my grandmother in her sleep. So basically, she woke up and couldn't breathe. Like, she was being choked, like, in her sleep. Like, literally felt like hands, like, in her sleep. So she had to be rushed to the hospital, and they basically just said she has sleep apnea, which, by the way, she's never had sleep apnea ever in her life. I'm pretty sure you can just develop sleep apnea, and then after they move out of the house, she just doesn't have it anymore. I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. But my pawpaw went in us kids' rooms to go to bed while we weren't there, and something sat next to him on the bed. This house was weird, and we were just kids. We were literally just kids. Like, we would find really weird things on the property. It was a pretty big property. Like, we had 4-wheelers, we had all those fun things. We would find the weirdest things, like weird baby dolls, and like there was this garage that had like a top level, which you literally, like, you can barely get up there, and like as soon as you did, like, you just felt like, ooh, like, this isn't good. Mind you, that same house, my cousin Jasmine saw our great-grandmother, which, by the way, we never really, like, we saw her when we were, like, kids, but, like, to the point where, like, we, you know, and also, she had a braid in her hair when my cousin saw her, which we didn't know that she was buried and with a braid. We did not know that she, like, at her funeral, she had one braid. So, yeah.
I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Thank you for spending your night with me. If you'd like to submit your own true story to possibly be featured in an upcoming episode, send it to eerie.enigma7@gmail.com. You'll also find it in the description below. Until next time, sweet dreams, or at least try to, and stay eerie.